Hello and welcome. In this video, I am going to show you how to create a simple social media graphic. Now, this is a graphic that can be used on many social media platforms, so we're going to be using a very basic 800 pixel by 800 pixel image. Now, you can make this any image size that you would like and follow along. And you also notice that I'm not showing the full software because I don't want the focus to actually be on the software, but more of the mindset and the steps that you would take to create this graphic. So I picked something rather simple that you can create in a multitude of different software applications for design. Now, the main thing that I want to show you in this video is how to think about design in design theory terms. So you want to be thinking about the typography, you want to think about the color, you want to think about the composition, and you also want to think if you're going to use any design elements or photography in your design. Now, typically, you should have a good idea of what you want to create and what it's going to show. So let's just imagine for the moment that we have a healthy blog or website and we are posting to our social media accounts. Now, for this social media post, we're going to be talking about some healthy recipes, and we just want to have a website where people can find that information and go check out our website. Now, for this particular video, we're going to call it a 10-minute recipe, and we're going to talk about salad mason jars. Now, this is just something that I kind of made up on the fly just to kind of show you an idea of how we might think through this process, but it can be anything. The methods are still the same, but you want to have a good idea of what you're going to create ahead of time. So you might need to know what colors you might want to use. If you're doing a branded kind of image, you want to maybe follow the color scheme of the website or the company or brand. You want to think about any photos you want to use that might help express your ideas. If we're doing salads, maybe we want to go find some salad images that we can use. Maybe we can pull colors from that image, or maybe we're using those branded colors. And you want to have this stuff ahead of time if you can. And also, if you can have out what you want to say ahead of time, that's also a big plus. So I usually typically go ahead and fill out that information. So let's go ahead and write in what we're going to say here. So I'm going to drop some text into here. And the first thing that this is going to say is it's going to say 10-minute recipes. So that's our first piece of text that we're going to have. Let's go ahead and drop in another piece of text here. And this is just going to say salad jars. So our website's talking about 10-minute recipes, and we're specifically talking about salad jars. We'll just go ahead and move that out of the way. And then we will drop in one more piece of text, and this is going to be our call to action or what we want the person to do. So we're going to say visit www.yoursite.com. Can't type today. And we will write salad jars. And I'm going to go ahead and make this the full width of my image, because what I want to happen is I want that to be nice and centered. Now I could change this left justified, right justified, or whatever, but this looks good. Okay, so this is a beginning for us. This kind of shows us what we want to show and how we want to say it. However, the typography is not that great, and something that we are going to want to change. So we might want to go in here and make these things bigger or smaller, and we want to use hierarchy to do that. So probably the biggest thing that we want to talk about here is the fact that we're talking about salad jar or mason jar recipes. They're very popular. They're really great if you've ever made one. You probably know what I'm talking about. If you've never prepped some salad jars before, you should, because they're really great. So we want this to be the biggest thing. So we want to use the biggest font so that it really stands out above everything else. So let's go ahead and we're going to just change this to a 64. We can also go ahead and stretch this out. Everything's going to be center justified, and I just want everything to be read right down the middle. Now you could use, you could have text off to the side or even text that's diagonal, but we're going to keep it nice and easy, and we're just going to have this text nice and centered. We can do the same thing here. Let's go ahead and move this over, and then what happens is no matter what size I make it, it'll stay centered for me to this. So salad jars is the biggest thing. The second biggest thing is the 10-minute recipes, and then our call to action. So the 10-minute recipes, we want that to be a little bigger than our call to action, but not as big as our main piece here. So 48 is pretty good, might be a little too big. Let's take this down to 36. Now, as you change the type and the fonts, you'll see that you might need to make these bigger or smaller, but we're already building hierarchy, and just by looking here, you can see that salad jars is nice and big and bold and easy to read, and then 10-minute recipes, and then we have our website. This might actually be a little too big. I like to use maybe a smaller call to action, maybe a 14 or a 16 as just a little tagline where people can find that and find that information if they need it. However, typically it's also in the content of the post. So now we can figure out, do we want to go ahead and lay this out, or maybe we want to bring in an image or figure out how we want to do this. Let's just start out with some basic colors so that we can get an idea of what this might look like. So we're going to change out the background, and we know we're dealing with salad jars, so maybe we can pick like a green color, a dark green color might work, and then we can change the text white, or maybe we can use something else of a salad like a orange color, or we could do maybe a red color, which really stands out, especially in social media. We can go through and try out some different things. So let's go ahead and pick kind of a more muted green color here. And maybe we want to go ahead and make this text a different color. The black against this green doesn't really stand out. So let's go ahead and change these to white. And as soon as I do that, you can see that the text now pops a little more because the background is darker, and that's creating some good contrast. Now, I don't like the tagline here. I probably want this more near the bottom. So let's just go ahead and move that down. And this is just going to allow us to have this separated, and your eye is going to move around this page. So what's going to happen is you're going to see salad jars nice and big. If that's something someone was interested in, they might want to investigate further, and then they can see 10-minute recipes. That tells them that it's going to be quick, and then they can see the text at the bottom with our website and information. Now, this is a good start. This gives us some information, and let's go ahead and center these up. Sometimes I have trouble grabbing these, so you'll see me clicking a couple different times here. Let's grab these two, and let's go ahead and get these centered, and I have these neat little things that'll tell me when everything's centered on the page. Now that looks pretty good. I might actually raise that up a little bit because being perfectly centered is a little jarring to the eyes. I want to create some contrast in the call to action in the website. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a colored box to actually separate that out. So let me go ahead and grab a design element here. Okay, and we'll bring in this square, and this is going to be near the bottom, so let's go ahead and get that down here on the bottom. Now our text went away because they're both white, so you can no longer see them. So let's go ahead and change this color. Now we can use any color theory principles that we know of, such as complementary colors or analogous colors. We want to pick something that might stand out differently than this green, so maybe like a nice yellow color would work very good. Now this square is sitting on top of our text in a layer. We need to actually move this back. So let's push that backwards. So now we can see the text a little better, but as you can see, it's really hard to see because the bright yellow and the white are very close together. So we need to change that color. We can maybe make it a little darker so it's easier to see. We could do black, and that looks very well together. Actually kind of like the way that stands out. Now you'll notice a lot of design comes down to just trying things and seeing how they work. And I would spend a lot more time on this, but just because we're short on time with this video, I want to quickly show you how to do this, but you will want to experiment and try different things. But this is great. This has good contrast. We can read everything very easily, and these colors work well together. The black and the green, if you look into any food magazines, you'll see these colors used often. They just have a very nice appeal to them working together like this, and it provides good contrast to see what's going on. However, this is very basic and very plain and actually kind of boring. boring. So let's work with the fonts. These fonts don't really look all that great to me. I don't really care for them, and they're all the same. Typically, we can change up our fonts and try some different fonts and see how they look, especially if you can use 2 fonts. It makes it look a little nicer. However, you don't want to get more than 3 fonts in a small design like this because it'll start looking very confusing. So I'm going to pick a new font for our main text here. I'm going to pick this one called League Spartan. Now this text, this font actually is very bold and very loud. Now if someone's scrolling through, say, Facebook or Twitter, and they see this image, it's going to stand out a lot better than the font we were using before because it's much bolder and thicker, and I really like this. Let's go ahead and change the bottom font to the same one. And that also stands out. Now we might edit the text a little bit. With other programs, I might change some of the kerning, the spacing, and so forth within this text. Actually, I might be able to do it in this program. Okay, so we do have some letter spacing. So I'm just going to adjust that a little bit, and it moves the letters apart in the words and just makes it easier to read. So that's a lot better. I like the way that's looking. Let's adjust letter spacing here just a hair. We don't want it to be too much, but we don't want it to be so close together you can't make out what it says. So let's just space it out just a little bit, and now that's looking good. However, I don't like the 10-minute recipes now because it's kind of competing with our salad jar font. So let's go ahead and change this one also. And I'm just going to look for a font that's very different from this very bold font, something that contrasts with it. Maybe it's a hand script or something else that looks different than this main font here. And I'm going to pick this font. This is kind of more of a hand scripted font. It provides a nice contrast between the two, and this looks really good. It might be a little low. So I want to create some breathing room between the two texts. Those were kind of close together. Now we could change the color of this also if we wanted to provide a little more contrast. So this helps make this stand out, and it provides a lot of the contrast with the black. Or we could completely change the color scheme here. So let's try something a little, we're gonna have to go a little dark because of our background. Okay, that yellow actually stands out really good against that green background. That looks pretty good. Let me change out this down here to this yellow now and see how they work. So that looks really nice. Those are coming together really nicely. However, this green background is just very bland. It doesn't really look that good. So let's stick a photo in here and see how that looks. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to change out this background just to give it a little more visual appeal. This looks very basic, very boring. I don't think anyone would want to check this out and click on it. So let's see if we can find a picture of a salad or a salad jar that we can use. I'm going to delete the background. You're going to see my text disappear. It's still there. It's just white and blending in. So let's go ahead and pull in an image. And I have this picture of a salad jar, so this works really good. Now, of course, this is too small, so we're going to need to scale it up. I'm going to scale it up uniformly until it covers up my whole image here. And then this really comes down to knowing a little bit of composition theory and moving this around. The hand up here is getting in the photo. I don't want that. I want the hand gone. And I just want to have some nice composition. Now I can't see the rest of the image, so that's because this is in front of everything on a layer. Let's go ahead and push that back. Okay, now I can see everything and I can move this around until I get the right composition that I want. And what I'm really looking for here is how much negative space is there around the edges. I don't want the jar touching the edge. That would cause kind of a visual problem. This is a great photo. I don't have to do too much to it, but I might want to move around and just kind of see where a good feel for this photo would be, where the text is working nicely with it. Now you will notice that the text is blending in way too much with this image and making it very hard to see. I like the composition with the spoon and the jar and the image in the background, but now we can no longer see our text. So there's a couple of different tricks that we can do to fix that by adjusting the image. So if I click on this image and I go to adjust it, we can do a couple things. First of all, we can bring down the brightness. By doing that, you immediately see the text pop, but the image doesn't look that great. So that's not one of my favorite things to do. It works sometimes. You can bring it down a little bit if you just need that little bit to make that text stand out. However, that doesn't look too good. You can also desaturate the image. So as we desaturate, you can see the text becomes a little easier to see. However, this is an image about salads and we like these bright colors. We don't want to get rid of those. We want to keep those in there. I can also blur out the image, and you will see as I begin adding blur to this image that text begins to pop a little more because we're creating contrast between the nice sharp text and the blurred background. However, again, we really want to see the salad and everything that's in it. We don't really want to blur that out. So another trick that you can do is you can add another element and make it slightly transparent, and it will keep a lot of your colors and things that you want to see. However, it creates contrast for us, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to bring in another square, and we're going to go ahead and just give this a random color for now just so you can see what's happening. We'll do this red, and we are going to make this a little transparent. You can already kind of see what's happening in this image. However, let's go ahead and set it up so it makes a little more sense. So we want to fill this out, and this needs to be above the layer with the photo but behind the layer with the text. So we're going to go ahead and push this backwards until we see everything starting to pop in here. There we go. Now we can see our text nice and easily, and we have our image that we can see really well, and it's a little muted with whatever color we want. Now this could be a branded color, or you can play around with the colors. I'm going to select this, and we're just going to click through a different couple of colors and see if anything looks good. And we can use color theory to see what colors would work well, complementary colors, analogous colors, and so forth. Another thing that you can do is you can do like a gray or a black, and this always looks pretty good. Now this is a different feature than using the brightness and contrast. This is actually a transparent layer, and it retains a lot of the color information. It just makes it a little darker without making the whole image go dark to where you can't see those colors. So we could do this black. This looks really cool. We might want to adjust the transparency now that we know what color we want to use. So as I bring the transparency down, we get back to our original image. And if we go full, we can see it blacks everything out. So what we'll do is we'll just go through and we'll kind of find out where would be a good fit, where we can see the jar, but we can also see those words, 10-minute recipes and salad jars. Now this looks good. However, I don't like that this is completely centered because my eyes are pulling downward. Everything looks better on a third line. This is called the rule of thirds. And if you imagine that I split this up into threes, there would be a line going across about right here. And that's really where we want to move our text closer to because it's a little more visual appealing. And we also want to look at the image that we're using to try to get an idea of where it fits with the jar and so forth. Okay, I didn't go all the way up to the third line, but I did raise it above the middle line just because I want to be able to see that a little easier. But that's basically how you could create a quick social media graphic in any program that you choose. And by learning more about graphic design theory, you will understand the reasonings behind doing certain things, such as the colors. Why do we pick certain colors? Why do we use a yellow for food versus a purple or magenta? Why do we choose the certain typographies, types, and fonts that we do, and how do they work together? And hopefully you can see that you have to have all of these in mind as you begin designing because it will help you into becoming a better designer by understanding all of the basic principles of graphic design theory. But hopefully by doing this little experiment here, you're able to see how some of these things start to come together.